Have you ever lived in a place that just didn't feel right? Or maybe your child said something strange, and even though it sounded impossible, a part of you believed it. In this episode, I'm going to share two true stories. The first is about an actor who moved into a village house with something unusual inside. The second is about a family whose new home came with an unexpected spiritual guest. Along the way, I'll explain some traditional Chinese beliefs, like date selection, the lunar calendar, and how these old customs still play a role in modern life. If you're into ghost stories with a cultural twist, stay with me to the end. This episode's main character is John, an actor. He told me this story himself, back when I used to work at a TV station. When he first started in the industry, he wanted to move out and live on his own to make it easier for work. But because he didn't have much money, he chose to rent a village house in a more remote area near the station. The house was around 800 square feet, 2 floors, quite spacious. Rent was cheap, and most importantly, it was really close to his workplace. John was only around 20 at the time, and it was his first time renting a place. He didn't think too much about it and just moved in. At the beginning, he had a dog living with him, but the dog clearly didn't like the house at all. Especially at night, it would often bark nonstop at the front door, like it was desperate to leave. John didn't pay much attention to it. He thought maybe the dog just wasn't used to the new place yet. At that time, John also had an assistant. Because of their work schedule, the assistant would sometimes stay over at his place. About a month after moving in, there was one night when John was asleep upstairs and his assistant was downstairs in the living room playing video games. He played until around 3 a.m. when suddenly he rushed upstairs in a panic, barged into John's room, and woke him up. The assistant said that while he was playing, he heard a group of men's voices whispering, "Hey, hey," right beside his ear. John figured the assistant was just imagining things from playing too long, so he told him to stay in the room and sleep together that night. 2 more weeks passed. One evening, John went out for dinner. He was out for about 2 hours. When he came back, he looked up and saw that the entire ceiling had turned black. He clearly remembered it was white before he left. He touched it and realized the whole ceiling had gone moldy. Not just in spots, the entire thing was black with mold. He tried wiping it with alcohol, and it came off. So he spent time cleaning the whole ceiling and turned it back to white, planning to figure out what happened the next morning. That night, while sleeping, he suddenly heard a woman's voice saying,
"Honey, honey."
He woke up, thinking maybe someone from the neighboring house was calling loudly and he overheard it. He waited for a bit, didn't hear anything else, and went back to sleep. But as soon as he fell asleep again, that same woman's voice came back,
"Honey, honey."
He got up again and tried to figure out where the voice was coming from. But after a while, it went silent. Then it hit him the guy living next door was a single man. There shouldn't have been any woman's voice at all. That, plus the mold, and his assistant hearing strange voices, John started to feel scared. Something wasn't right. The next morning, John bumped into one of the building's owners nearby and asked, "Hey, do you feel like there's something weird about my place?" The owner looked surprised and said, "Wait, you saw something too?" That gave John chills. But since the lease had only just started barely 2 months, and he didn't have money to move again, he asked a friend to help him find a Feng Shui master. Eventually, he was introduced to an elderly woman who worked at a shop that sold traditional paper offerings. He gave her his date and time of birth. She started doing some calculations and asked him a few questions, mostly about his childhood. She asked things like, "Did you almost drown when you were around 8 years old?" Questions only John himself would know the answer to. Once she confirmed the details were accurate, she closed her eyes to sense the energy of the house, to see what was going on and whether it could be fixed. To his surprise, The old lady was able to describe the interior of his house, even the color of his dog. Once she confirmed that yes, this was the house he lived in, she told him there was a spirit inside. She said the spirit had lived there for a long time before dying and still hadn't moved on. And most importantly, it didn't like John. It didn't want him living there. That's why it kept trying to scare him. She said this type of spirit couldn't just be driven away, because the place originally belonged to the spirit, not to him. The only solution was for John to leave. In the end, John spoke to the landlord. Turns out, the landlord already knew something was wrong with the house, so he agreed to cancel the lease. And that's how John finally managed to move out. This time, we're talking about another haunted house story. The main character is Jenny. As we all know, property prices in Hong Kong are incredibly high. Jenny's family saved up for years before they could finally afford to buy a 3-story village house in a rural area. It was big enough for the whole family to live in together. At first, nothing unusual happened after they moved in. But occasionally, while Jenny was sleeping in her second-floor bedroom, she would hear someone knocking on the window. At first, the sound was very soft. She thought maybe it was just the wind blowing pebbles against the glass, so she didn't take it seriously. But over time, the knocking grew louder and more frequent. What was strange was that only Jenny could hear it. No one else in the house heard any knocking on the windows or doors. After a while, Jenny's young child, about 5 years old, started saying there was an uncle inside the house. Because of that, the child refused to sleep alone, always asking Jenny to stay with them and never turn off the lights. Jenny thought it was just a normal childhood fear of the dark and didn't worry too much. But even after some time, her child kept saying there was an uncle living in the house. Jenny started to feel uneasy. She decided to visit a traditional paper offering shop to check the date. This practice, known as Chayak Gok in Cantonese, is a form of spiritual divination using your birth date and time to see if a place is spiritually compatible. I'll explain more about this tradition at the end of the episode, so stay tuned if you're interested. The results were unsettling. The uncle her child kept talking about had apparently lived in that house when he was very young. He died as a child but never left. And now, having grown up, he was seeking a ghost marriage, a spiritual wedding between the living and the dead. I've covered ghost marriages in more detail in another episode if you're curious. Once Jenny found out about his wish, she arranged for a ritual to fulfill the spirit's desire for marriage, hoping it would bring peace and stop the disturbances. After the ritual, things really did quiet down. The uncle never appeared again for a while. But then, one night around 2 a.m., everyone in the house suddenly heard someone knocking at the front door. This time, it wasn't just Jenny. The entire family heard it. Nervously, she opened the door and found 2 police officers outside. The officers explained that a taxi driver had called the police. Earlier that night, he had dropped off a man and a woman at this very house. The couple said they had forgotten their wallet and needed to go inside to grab it. But after a long time, they never came back out. The driver got suspicious and reported it. The police insisted that the driver clearly saw the couple enter the house and never leave, so they asked to search the home. Of course, after checking, there was no one there. Everyone, including the police, just assumed the driver had made a mistake. But Jenny couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Later, something even stranger happened. One night, her child suddenly woke up, put on gloves, and started cleaning the house, sweeping the floor, doing the dishes like they had turned into someone else. Jenny asked what they were doing, and the child replied, "Don't bother me, I need to do the chores." Jenny felt sure that the uncle had returned. This time, she consulted a Feng Shui master. The master explained that the uncle had grown up in the house and, although he passed away young, his spirit never left. After Jenny helped him fulfill the ghost marriage, he had brought his wife back to live with him in the house. The master said both of them believed the home still belonged to them, and they had no intention of leaving. He also explained that forcing them out would be nearly impossible. Even if they could be driven away, it wouldn't guarantee that they wouldn't return. Seeing her young child continue to do chores every day like they were possessed, Jenny finally made a decision. Even if it meant losing money, she would sell the house. Since the day they moved out, the uncle and his wife never followed them. Jenny and her family were finally able to return to a peaceful life. In traditional Chinese culture, Chayat Gok, or checking auspicious dates, is considered both important and mysterious. It involves using a person's exact year, month, day, and time of birth and referencing a book called the Tong Sheng, also known as the Chinese almanac. With this, people can find out which dates are suitable for certain activities, or whether their destiny contains anything they should be cautious about. The Tong Sheng is more than just a calendar. It contains detailed information about the lunar seasons, good and bad days, and even what each day is ideal for, like getting married, moving house, opening a business, breaking ground, or holding ceremonies to honor ancestors. Many Chinese people believe that if you do something important on the wrong date, it could bring bad luck or negative consequences in the future. For example, if you get married on a date marked as inauspicious for weddings, your marriage may struggle or even end in divorce. Or if you open a business on a day that clashes with your fortune, the business may not succeed. This belief is deeply rooted in the culture and has been passed down for thousands of years. Even today, many families and business owners still consult a master to check the right date before making major decisions, to ensure everything is in harmony with the universe. But Chayat Gok isn't just about choosing lucky dates. It can also be used to read a person's life path. Based on your date of birth, a fortune teller can predict things like when you might face challenges, how your career or relationships will go, or even whether you're more prone to encountering spiritual disturbances such as seeing ghosts or being affected by unseen forces. That's why, when someone starts experiencing strange things like unexplained sounds, broken electronics, or feelings of unease, some people wonder, could something dirty or spiritual be following me? At that point, they might visit a master to check their date of birth and see if their fate clashes with the energy of their home, or if a spirit is refusing to let go. To be clear, Chayat Gok isn't necessarily superstition. For some, it offers comfort and a sense of control. For others, it provides a serious explanation for events they can't understand. Whether you believe in it or not, date selection remains a respected part of Chinese tradition. When people face major turning points or mysterious experiences, some turn to doctors, some to therapists, and some to the wisdom of the old masters. So, that brings us to the end of this episode. From John's haunted rental to Jenny's ghost marriage encounter, these stories remind us that sometimes, what we can't see still finds a way to make itself known. They're not just ghost stories, they reflect how deeply traditional beliefs still shape the way many people understand the unknown. Whether it's Chayat Gok, Feng Shui, or rituals to calm a spirit, these practices are still very much alive in modern Chinese culture. What do you think? Do you enjoy hearing more stories like these? Not just the supernatural parts, but the cultural background behind them? If you do, leave a comment and let me know. I'd love to share more with you next time. Thanks for listening, and until the next haunted tale, stay curious, and maybe leave a light on tonight.